Good evening. Last Thursday, there were just 4 confirmed cases of coronavirus in London. Now the number is 61. In the last 24 hours, 10 more people have tested positive. Kensington and Chelsea, Ealing and Barnet are among the areas with people affected. But today, the Prime Minister repeated his advice that the best thing everyone can do right now is wash our hands. With the latest on how COVID-19 is affecting the capital, here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
In a city of almost 9 million people, the confirmed cases are still a tiny fraction of the population. But the number of Londoners diagnosed with the virus appears to be rising at a worrying rate. Last Thursday, there were just 4 confirmed cases in London. On Friday, the figure shot up to 25. On Sunday, it more than doubled to 51. And today, a further 10 patients were diagnosed, making a total of 61 cases. The advice from the government is about to change.
Everybody who has even minor respiratory tract infections or a fever should be self-isolating for 7 days afterwards. And this is going to be the next step. We have not yet reached that step, but we are going to be reaching that step in the really quite near future.
Watching what is happening around the world, our scientists think containment is extremely unlikely to work on its own. And that is why we are making extensive preparations for a move to the delay phase.
Among those infected in recent days was someone working at the Palestra in Southwark, the headquarters of Transport for London. Here, as in other buildings where an employee has tested positive, Transport for London followed what has now become standard procedure. The office was sealed off. A specialist team was brought in to clean and sterilise it. Then this morning, the staff were allowed back into work. Adopting a healthy lifestyle is seen as one way to increase our defences against illness. And for many Londoners, that means joining a gym. At this one in Dulwich, members are greeted by warning notices and little green bottles containing a cleaning fluid made up of 50% alcohol.
It's a specialist cleaning product used by the pharmaceutical industry. We took the decision to buy as much as we could last week from a supplier we know, and that just gives us the very best chance of making sure that the wipe down process is doing its job.
The outbreak of coronavirus has led to some strange offers. This kiosk at Stepney Green Tube Station in East London now sells dust masks alongside soft drinks and sweets. They cost £2 each, but at the builder's merchant across the street, they can be bought for 35p.
And Simon, just looking, some breaking news in the last few minutes.
Yes, we've just been told of the first person to die from coronavirus in London. We understand that it's a patient with underlying health issues who was in their 70s. They are reportedly a patient at the St Helier Hospital in South London, and the hospital trust there says that person has sadly died. Now, not surprisingly, in the Commons today, there were lots of questions to the Health Secretary when he was questioned by MPs, including one from a London MP who wanted to know why air passengers on flights from Italy to London weren't being screened.
People are continuing to arrive from North Italy. Will my right honourable friend think about testing at the airports or mandatory quarantining?
The evidence from other countries that have tried testing, temperature testing at the airport, shows that it is not effective, and because it leads to lots of false positives, it can actually be counterproductive to the effort.
And I think the other significant development today was the admission by Boris Johnson that containing the virus on its own is not going to work. We will soon be moving to the strategy of trying to delay the peak of the outbreak until the summer, when there should be less pressure on the NHS.
OK, Simon, thank you very much.
Good evening. A patient in Watford is the 6th person to die after testing positive for COVID-19. The man in his 80s was being treated at Watford General Hospital. 91 people are now confirmed to have coronavirus in the capital, a 50% rise since yesterday's figures. Well, as a precaution, tubes and buses will be cleaned more regularly with new products that kill bacteria to try to stop the virus spreading quickly. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
For the second time in 24 hours, coronavirus has claimed the life of a hospital patient. A man in his 80s died at Watford General Hospital in Hertfordshire. Like yesterday's victim in South London, he had health problems before catching the virus. Last Thursday, there were 4 confirmed cases of coronavirus in London. By yesterday, the figure had risen to 61 cases. Overnight, there was a 50% increase, bringing the number of cases today to 91. The habits of Londoners are beginning to change. Every day, 5 million people travel around London in the confined space of a tube carriage. Transport for London has detected a small dip in the number of passengers since the start of the outbreak. Eugenio and Liliana, who are from Moldova, won't take the tube without wearing masks. Their son Nicholas is behind a plastic screen in his buggy. Do you think you're at risk on the tube?
Yes, why not? Yes, because there are a lot of people.
It's not an opinion shared by everyone. Masks might be more common, but passengers wearing them are still a minority.
I don't feel too much of a worry. Other people in my office are absolutely panicking and won't go anywhere.
I think it's quite safe, and I think Londoners would just go ahead and do what they can.
The dirtiest thing I carry around is my phone, so I gave that a good clean. And I think actually we need to take a bit more responsibility for our own safety.
Today, Transport for London decided commuters needed reassuring. Cleaners wiping down surfaces will become a common sight at some busy stations.
We've started using now the sort of antiviral, antibacterial disinfectant used in hospitals to make sure the TfL estate, the ticket points, the Oyster pay-as-you-go, the poles are as clean as they can be.
TfL is also testing a new long-lasting disinfectant which should give a month's protection, but it's not ready yet and won't be for a few weeks. The union representing tube drivers wants to see more action.
We welcome the announcement today of an enhanced cleaning regime, but so far we haven't seen the evidence on the ground. There's also concern about whether the cleaning contractor actually has the resources to do what is needed with an enhanced cleaning regime.
The latest confirmed cases of coronavirus include a patient at Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel. The hospital says they're now in an isolation room and everyone they came into close contact with has been traced.
Well, Simon is here with me now, and I'm also joined by psychotherapist Vasya Toksavidi to talk about looking after your mental health during this outbreak. We'll come to you in a moment, but first, Simon, you know, hospitals are now really starting to feel the pressure, aren't they?
Yes, we learned today that someone working in the cardiac unit at Great Ormond Street Hospital for Children has tested positive for coronavirus. Now, we're told that they're a healthcare professional, but we're not being given any more information than that. But as a precaution, Great Ormond Street has decided to put all non-essential heart surgery and cardiac procedures on hold for 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness me, Simon, thank you. Well, our political correspondent Simon Harris joins me now. Simon, undoubtedly this was a budget aimed at countering the effects of coronavirus here in the capital.
Yes, a budget unlike any other, with the first 15 minutes the Chancellor talking not about tax and spend but about the coronavirus crisis. We heard there from Martin about how the government's going to refund sick pay for some businesses. But of course sick pay doesn't apply to the many Londoners in the gig economy like minicab drivers and couriers, and that was acknowledged by the Chancellor.
There are millions of people working hard who are self-employed or in the gig economy. They will need our help too. So to support them during this period, we will make it quicker and easier to access benefits.
Simon, what is the latest on coronavirus in
Well,
London?
the number of people affected in London has gone up again. Yesterday it was 91, today it's 104. They include another office worker at Transport for London, and the World Health Organization has declared it a pandemic. But despite that, the Mayor's still going ahead with the big St Patrick's Day parade through the West End on Sunday.
The Chief Medical Officer was quite clear. His advice is there's no logical reason to cancel major events taking place in our city, or indeed the elections, which are due to happen on May the 7th. He's encouraging, for example, in the election, for returning officers to make it as easy as possible for those who want a postal vote to get one.
We're going to get another statement on coronavirus from the Health Secretary in the House of Commons in just under an hour. But the message from the Chancellor today was stark. The economy is going to take a hit.
All right, Simon, we'll update our views in our late bulletin tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. The warning from the Prime Minister tonight is serious. This is the worst public health crisis for a generation, and the public will need to make big personal changes to try to slow the spread of coronavirus and protect and care for vulnerable loved ones. In London, 2 more patients have died in hospitals, and the number of confirmed cases here has leapt up by a third since yesterday to 136. That's a quarter of all cases across the UK. For now, No schools will close and mass gatherings will not be cancelled. But there are calls for May's mayoral election to be postponed until the autumn. With the latest, here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
The deadly virus claimed another 2 victims in London today. An 89-year-old patient died at Charing Cross Hospital in Hammersmith. Across the city in East London, a woman in her 60s died at Queen's Hospital in Romford. Both were ill before they were infected with COVID-19.
This is the worst public health crisis for a generation. I must level with you, level with the British public. More families, many more families, are going to lose loved ones before their time.
There's now a question mark over the next election for London Mayor. Britain's Electoral Commission called on the government to postpone the poll until the autumn. Former Cabinet Minister Rory Stewart is standing as an independent. Today he cancelled the launch of his campaign. Can this election go ahead?
I think it's going to be increasingly difficult for it to go ahead, and there's a good reason for this. And I think everything is going to change in London much more quickly than you can believe. There's meant to be a big St Patrick's Day parade happening on Sunday. It should stop.
In Clerkenwell, a group of Italian pensioners were having to make do with bopping without touching. This was their last get-together for a while. Their weekly dance and lunch club is shutting its doors after today until the crisis is over.
I'm very sorry that it's closing, but I presume it's for the best. We all have to do our part to stay safe.
We all kiss one another. We miss not kissing one another.
It is sensible because, I mean, we are at an age that we have to look after each other, and it is a vulnerable age.
But confining older people to their homes isn't without risk.
The worry is that they become isolated, so they don't have that social contact, but also physically they lose the ability to maintain their activities of daily living. That can happen quite quickly.
London's big St Patrick's Day parade on Sunday is going ahead, for now at least, even if performers are a little nervous.
Our motto is the show must go on. There is that worry, obviously being in big crowds, but we've just got to keep going and not worry too much.
Today, the Prime Minister conceded the tactic of trying to contain the virus wasn't working. As many as 10,000 people in Britain might now be infected.
And Simon's here now, along with Dr Murray Ellender, who's a GP. Simon, first, another big leap in cases today.
Yeah, just in London, we've seen over the past 7 days how the virus has taken hold. If we go back to last Thursday, when we first were given the number of cases in London, we were told there were 4 confirmed cases of coronavirus in London. Fast forward to yesterday, that has shot up to 104. Well, the latest figures that came out today, it's now 136. In addition to that, 3 people have died in London hospitals.
What's behind these calls for the mayoral election to be delayed?
A number of concerns from the Electoral Commission, which effectively regulates elections. First of all, canvassers knocking on doors, meetings with candidates in big groups of people, talking to voters, lots of interaction between human beings, not good when you're trying to stop the spread of a virus. Secondly, the logistics of actually running the election. Will there be enough staff to man the polling stations? Will there be enough staff to run the counting overnight? Well, it doesn't take place overnight in London, but it's throughout the following day. Is there going to be enough staff?